Listen, I'm doing you guys a favor by letting you even be in here.
Ukuba uphinde wakuchukumisa, takukunqoma apha, kwesi sihlalo.
Does she speak English?
When she wants to.
Hello and welcome back to A Stark Contrast, where we discuss the differences and similarities from Marvel Comics to their MCU counterparts. And we're your hosts, Geoffrey
and Dai.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Dai.
We were just catching up on all the stuff that we've been doing.
It's always only ever 2 weeks, but it literally feels like an eternity every time.
It feels like a month.
Like
like a straight up month.
We both were on planes at some point.
Right.
We came back.
In party towns, no less. Vegas and Austin.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Definitely both party towns.
Right? I was like, oh. I was in College City.
And then came back Labor Day. We were back in Labor Day weekend the next weekend.
Yep.
I'm in Palm Springs doing degenerate stuff. That's what we call
Salacious.
That's what we call our group that I went with. Like we are just degenerates. Full grown adults on degenerate behavior with full-time jobs on degenerate behavior.
Adult money.
It's stupid. It's gross. It's really stupid.
You're enjoying yourself. It's okay.
Injured my ribs, so I got that going for me.
Yeah, I'm just old, so I have that going for me.
Coughing hurts. I'm keeping that in. I don't care.
Oh, no.
I'm keeping that in.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
So it feels like an eternity has gone by. Mm-hmm. So that's fun.
Yeah. And it's like one escapade after another, right? And then for me, I came back. I'm just barely catching up with myself, like because of the last 2 months. Yeah. And I started to put out some spooky stuff. And I was like, it's basically October for me. So I have spooky stuff out.
Is summer over?
I don't know if it's officially fall yet, but it is very close.
Yeah.
The autumnal equinox is coming up.
I'm ready
quick.
I'm ready for the call. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the overcast has been nice. So we're getting into it and things are going to start releasing for the holidays. But so doubling back to Austin, thanks to those who attended the Spinning Webs in the Spider-Verse panel at GalaxyCon. I was unfortunately David Marquez, who was an artist for a lot of Miles Morales books, he had to cancel due to cold and illness, thanks to his kids. But I was joined by Silk artist Tana Ford and of course Robbie Rodriguez, who is known for co-creating Spider-Gwen. And so we had a nice little chat, mostly about comics, but I got some really great questions from the audience about the films.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was stuff that the two of them didn't necessarily know about. So I was like, hey, I got you.
Nice.
So it was a nice little balance. We had a few cosplayers there, like a handful of Miles's, a Noir, a couple of Gwens and stuff. It was cool. So thanks to anybody who happens to be listening, who was there. And while I was in Austin, I had a few things, like as I do with every convention. I got to meet again Mr. Charlie Cox.
That was so cool. I was like, oh my God.
He was just chilling. So the thing that really shook me, because usually, again, I don't get starstruck anymore. I'm not that person.
Yeah.
Because of my profession, in my previous profession. So when I was in line with the handler to get the picture with Kristen Ritter, aka Jessica Jones, I was like oh my god, it's Kristen Ritter. I love Jessica, and she's gorgeous in person, gorgeous. And I looked to the right, and I was like, oh my god! And Charlie Cox was just sitting in a chair. He was like literally watching. He was just sitting slumped over like this, and he was just watching everybody come in. And I was like, has he been there the entire... Because I went at the tail end of her session. I was originally only going to take a picture with both of them. But because I got pulled in as like a VIP, I just went in line for her by herself. And he must have been sitting there
Oh my god!
Her entire session, and all those people like coming in that actually paid to see her were probably like, "Oh my god, it's a 2-for-1," because you get to see him, but just take the picture with her.
Wow.
So they were just chilling like homies, and then Vincent D'Onofrio was taking his own pictures somewhere else in another booth. And so I literally came in and I was like, "Oh my god, you're gonna have to bleep this." I was like, "I fucking love you," and she was like, "Oh my god, you're so cute. Oh my gosh, it's nice to meet you." I was like, "Yeah, likewise." And she's exactly like, she's tall. First off, she's very tall.
Oh really?
She had boots on, but she's a tall lady. Like she has to be at least 5'9". And
Ooh,
and
love
she's I mean again
yeah.
she's exactly what you expect. And then she was like, "Okay, I'll see you later." I was like, "Bye." And then I literally walked away, and then Paolo was like, "All right, we're getting right back in," and we literally walked right back in, and then it was her and Charlie. And so
both of them at the same time?
At the same time. So my picture, I have a picture with her and a picture with both of them that are taken literally within 3 minutes of each other.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's pretty funny because I was like, "Crap."
Was he like, or she like, back again?
I was like, yeah, I was like, "Oh, what was it? What did I say?" I said something like, "Oh, deja vu." And she started laughing, and then Charlie was like, "Oh, hello," because you remember the Thwip shirt. I was wearing the same damn shirt that I wore the first time I met him, like 4 months ago. I was
that's
like,
hilarious.
Man, it's fine, but he's a delight. We got tangled. We're both awkward, so our arms got tangled. Like, as I was walking,
how do you
I was
even
just
like put your arm around a celebrity? You know, like
I know.
Like, do you touch them?
Right.
I feel like every time, like, I mean, and like probably like that less than a handful of times that I've been around, like,
Sure.
I guess taking a picture with a celebrity.
Yeah.
It's like. It feels weird touching them because you feel like you're touching, like you're in a museum.
It's violation.
Yeah,
right?
like you're at the museum. You're like, do I?
Yeah.
You know.
And I've personally have rarely met anybody that will not like do it first. Like, for instance, like one where I didn't even reach for anybody. It was because I had a picture with like the Guardians, right?
Yeah.
So it's like 5 people in a picture. No one's doing anything. So we're just trying to get it done. But like, I don't think I've ever had a picture with somebody where they didn't reach over. And so in this case, like Kristen reached over and then Charlie reached over. So I was like, all right, well, I got you both. And I was like, oh my God, I'm touching their sides.
Their sides.
Like at the same time. And it's
It's
Jessica
weird.
Jones and Matt Murdock. It was amazing. I love them. Oh my God. And they're so nice. There's
That's
very
crazy.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right, I'm 2 for 2 with Charlie. 3rd time's a charm. We're actually going to sit down and have a discussion. I'm going to be like, "So, do you want to talk about
What
the thing you can't talk about?" Like, but yeah, it was a good time. And then I actually picked up a new graded comic book.
Oh my God.
And I don't want to reach over for it, but I know you had seen it when it was sitting up there.
I did. I was like, is that new?
Incredible Hulk number 271, which is the first official appearance of Rocket Raccoon.
Oh.
9.2.
Wow.
I mean, you know, like most people won't settle for anything under a 9.5. That's fine. That's them. I'm like, I just want to be able to have one that's a decent copy that has good resale value.
9.2 is still good.
It's pretty good. So this book goes for about 300 or more.
Damn.
Even at 9.2. But the lovely people at Austin Books and Comics gave me an incredible deal that I will not disclose on this book.
You love that.
And I was like, I shouldn't. So I'll think about it. And I, once again, walked around the corner and literally came right back and I said, F it, just give it to me. And it's funny because he actually acknowledged me first when I walked up. And so he was like, "Hey, nice lady from Robbie's table." So he'd been actually working with Robbie to get some books signed for their store. And he recognized me because I'm the one at the table. And so I was like, "Oh, hello." And it didn't register with me. And so he's like, "Oh, I can give you a deal." I was like, "I'll take a deal." And so I had to take it. And so I took the deal. And so
sounds like a good deal.
Yeah. So now I'm just only missing, of the Guardians, I'm only missing Drax and Groot. And that's it. I have everybody else. And Mantis.
Oh, first appearance?
Mm-hmm. So I have Star-Lord. I have Rocket. I have Gamora, Nebula, Nova, Adam Warlock.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I have all the primary people. So I'm just missing those 3. I might have Mantis, actually. But yeah. So that was pretty cool. And so Austin was, of course, awesome because big food, drinks. It's a party town, but I didn't really.
Where in Austin is it exactly?
The convention?
Yeah.
There's an Austin Convention Center.
Yes.
And it's next to the University of Texas.
Oh, never mind. I think I might be thinking something else. Well, I was thinking about when I went to Austin City Limits, I picked up our wristbands in like this convention center.
Oh, it might be
but
the
I don't
same
know
one.
if it's that because it was like, I don't know, it was next to a college. So
Maybe.
Because I was mostly I was near like Congress.
Yeah.
That's where it is?
Yeah,
like
near 6th Street.
Yeah.
But yeah. It was around the same area. We were within walking distance, so we did a few speakeasies, like the hidden ones that you have to find, and then you have to get a code. We'll talk about this off the mic, but yeah, it's some good stuff. But it was a great time. Spent it with a lot of our artists, and we had some cancellations, but we made the most of it. And yeah, so only 2 more shows, at least conventions for the year for me. I think I just have New York Comic Con next month. And then Columbus in December. Ohio in December.
Damn, New York? Oh my god.
New York. My annual trip is coming up.
I know.
And I get to meet Chris Evans. So that's cool. Provided he doesn't cancel. Because I was going to meet our own, Will Poulter. But he canceled.
That's right. You should,
Yeah, Adam Warlock is not appearing at New York Comic Con. If you didn't know that, I'm so sorry.
Was Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio just there for photo ops?
Mm-hmm. And autographs. So they have panels, but they don't talk about...
They literally can't talk about anything.
No. So they're like, how did you get into acting? Or how did you... like
They can't even talk about like
very generic.
how was working on Netflix Daredevil?
Nope.
Damn.
They can't retroactively talk about it anymore. They used to be able to. Now they can't. I saw a clip of Vincent... It was Vincent, and I was going to call him Matt. Charlie on stage at another convention at some point before GalaxyCon. And they were just on stage eating chips. Like sharing chips. They both had bags of chips, and they're just like answering questions, generic questions, and they're swapping bags in the middle of it. They're just like
they literally can't talk about anything.
Yeah, they can't talk about anything. So
and this godforsaken strike, man. Gosh.
Can we please?
There's things coming out that I don't even know it's out.
Yeah, right? And speaking
like, I didn't know I Am Groot is out.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up right now. So speaking of I Am Groot, Jeff hasn't seen it yet, but I watched it yesterday. And the new quote-unquote season, it's adorable, and you can finish it within 20 minutes. Easy.
It's Bucky, like lunch for me. Nice.
Bucky was like legitimately glued to the TV. He was watching. He loves Groot. Yeah, it's so cute. There is one very, very brief cameo in it. It's great.
I was going to ask.
I love it. It's so cute. Okay. I love Baby Groot. So go watch you some of that if you can and haven't yet. Although I have to say, Jeff, if you missed Rogers the Musical, the ship has officially sailed.
Already?
The short-lived show at DCA dropped its final curtain on August 31st.
Why?
I was so sad when I found out. Is it only for
the summer?
It was, they said limited time. I didn't think it was that limited, but evidently it was.
Limited time?
Yeah, so it's gone.
What, are they going to go back to Frozen?
I don't know. I hope
I'm
not.
sorry if you're in the Frozen show. Like, I'm sure you're amazing in it, but I mean, come on.
Frozen wasn't... Aladdin.
Bring back Aladdin, please.
Aladdin on Broadway is out. But yeah, so unfortunately, it has officially stopped. And so I'm super duper sad because I was like, oh, I'll at least go to the last one. And then my friend was like, oh, it happened already. I was like, oh, well... So unfortunately, if you haven't seen it, you got to watch on YouTube or something. So that's sad. And then finally, new Loki season 2 teaser dropped. Season 2 teaser dropped.
Woo.
Did you watch that?
Of course.
I actually did.
Wow.
Because it wasn't too... But it's funny because I tune out. I don't listen to it. I just look at what's happening and then I'm like, okay.
Have you been to McDonald's yet?
I haven't been inside, but I've gotten the Loki sauce.
Oh, they're doing it. They did something at Randy's Donuts too in Inglewood.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Shoot. Because I know they were taking over New York stuff.
They did New York and they did a Randy's Donuts one.
Damn.
I think it was Miss Minutes in the donut, which makes a lot of sense.
Oh, that's funny. I like that.
That would be cool.
That's cool. Yeah. Unfortunately, I've not seen anything in the wild, but I'd like to. I'm wondering what they're going to do because
they really teased Victor Timely in it.
Yeah, they did.
And I was like,
That's right. The Kang thing. So I was like, interesting. So he's still happening.
Still in there.
We'll see. I wonder what they're going to do, if they're going to do screenings like they did Ahsoka. So for Ahsoka, for instance, I just caught up on that, and they're doing like fan screenings night before.
They're showing episode 5 apparently in theaters.
Yeah, on Tuesday.
So apparently,
yeah.
It's a good ass episode.
I know. I was like, so is it a 5? Is it a 9? How many episodes? Oh, 6 or 9?
6 or an 8?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we'll see if Loki gets the same treatment. That'd be kind of amazing. I'd like to go see that. Hey, Marvel, remember us? We're here. Send us. And but unfortunately, so while that premieres on Friday, October 6th, it looks like the rest of the shows are getting delays. I saw that, like Agatha is officially getting pushed, which means everything after that pushed.
Yeah, the only thing on track right now is Loki and the Marvels.
Because I think even X-Men, the animated series,
that got
pushed to January, which was supposed to be November, December. So that sucks. Again, end the strike.
Pay your actors and pay your writers.
Pay them now.
Sorry.
So with that said, we can move on to the actual topic of the show.
Woo!
But just a reminder, we are not experts, and we don't claim to be. We're just a couple of nerds nerding out.
Yes.
And this episode, we will be nerding out over not only Okoye, but also the Dora Milaje of the Black Panther universe. Woohoo!
Yes.
So, created by, and this is going to be a new one for you, Jeff, Christopher Priest and Mark Texiera.
Oh, wow.
Both Okoye and the Dora Milaje made their first appearance in Black Panther #1, Volume 3, November 1998.
Oh, wow.
So they've been around for a hot minute.
A little bit, getting up there.
Not like Black Panther status, because he's in the
not
60s.
Like golden years, but
yeah, exactly. And so this one doesn't even have, this is the era where they no longer put prices on covers.
So I can't even guess the price?
You can, because it was on the back cover or the interior cover. But do you want to give a shot?
1998.
1998.
Okay, guys, last time I got it very right, and it was 1969. It was at 12 cents.
Yes, you did.
So now we're going to fast forward 20 plus years.
Almost the turn of the century.
Yeah. God. Is it still going to be... Is it going to be... It's going to be under $1 still?
So here, think about things that were in the world in 1998. Like,
I was 4 years old.
Oh, so that doesn't help at all. God, I was in high school. So in high school, you could probably get a soda for 50 cents or 75 cents.
Oh my God.
And then think of how much they are now.
I want to guess between $1 and $2.
Okay.
Like that's where my head's going.
Okay.
So I want to do. Let's go $1.75.
Is this The Price is Right?
Come on, Bob. What we got?
It's not a bad guess, but it's not right either.
It's very wrong.
No, it's not too wrong. We're hovering at around $2.85. So you're off by a buck.
Damn, inflation sucks.
Inflation sucks, because especially with comics, they're $4.99 and up now.
Are they?
Yeah.
I'm so used to things being overpriced. I'm like, oh, comics are probably like $10.
I mean, depending on we didn't even talk about variants. Variants are a thing. So yeah, we're looking at just under $3 at this time. So as I'll post on social, the cover is just a Black Panther with the cape and cowl.
Sick, though.
Very well, I don't know if we'll ever see this particular suit. They've paid homages to it, slight nods, with the gold detailing and such. But yeah, so Okoye and the Dora Milaje made their first appearance in here, and believe it or not, this is here's a look at the Dora Milaje in the first panel of the first appearance, as well as Zuri.
Oh.
So it's interesting, right?
Yeah.
And so I believe Zuri was portrayed by
Forrest
Whitaker. Yeah. And so do you want to give a guess of who was who in this picture? So there's a picture of two Dora Milaje in red, very gorgeous women.
Is one of them Okoye?
One is Okoye and one is another character.
Is one Ayu?
No.
I think the one on the left is Okoye.
Okay.
And then the right is
Yeah.
it Nakia? Well, she was in Dora Milaje at some point, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that Nakia?
You're correct. So that's Okoye.
Guys, I'm good at answering questions that aren't the quiz.
Yeah, you are. And so before we get too far into those weeds, the highest edition of this comic book you can find on Shortbox that's graded is a 9.8, available for approximately $1,200.
Oh my God.
So, so it's worth a pretty penny. And then on eBay, there's a CBCS 9.8 available for the same price. The lowest I could find graded was an 8.5 on Shortbox for about $50. That's not bad.
It's not bad. It's also a drop from 1,200 to 50 for
but again,
like
for 1.3. That's how different it is, right?
God.
Yeah. And so on eBay, a CGC 8.0 available for $35. And if you wanted it raw, just a loose copy, they start at around $12.
Wow.
So you could still get it and then
Yeah.
get it graded and it would still be, whatever. But it is an older book. It's almost 30 years old, so condition might vary. But so this is clearly your first exposure to the character was the film. Yeah. I think for most people, I think this is definitely one for me. This was hands down my first exposure.
100%. But it also plays into the actor that plays into the character, because that means like that actor was so good it made an impact on you that you remember them. They're like, oh yeah, Okoye, Dora Milaje. They're like Ryan Coogler did his freaking thing with Black Panther.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and he still does, which is my favorite part.
Yeah, for the circumstances they were given for Wakanda Forever.
Sure.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I know, brutal.
I mean,
and I'm sure we'll talk about a lot of that. For me, same. This isn't one of those cases where I was like, oh yeah, I knew about that. Like, no, I don't. Like in the late 90s, going into 2000s, I had taken like a break from comics.
Yeah.
And I was definitely more into anime at that point. And so I didn't come back until like maybe 2004. So there's a little gap of time where I just was completely absent. So I completely missed the boat as far as their entry into the MCU, or the Marvel Universe rather, came. And so when Black Panther started to rise up in relevance for the MCU in preparation for the MCU, that's when I started to go back and start reading everything. But not to the degree that I know now, obviously. And so like really seeing them on screen was my first real like, okay, this is who they are, this is what they do. And so the first thing I saw personally was that they used to do those preview screenings of like the first 15 minutes or whatever it was. And so for Black Panther, they actually showed the scene in the first film when they go to the casino.
Oh, the casino scene. Yeah.
Yeah. And so with that like scene, I was immediately sold
on the movie,
on Chad, on Danai, who by that time, of course, I was already familiar with the Walking Dead. Yeah, and I love her as Michonne. So seeing her on screen as Okoye, I was like, oh my God, this is perfect.
Yeah, I remember
for
seeing
her.
videos of when they saw that scene for the first time at Comic-Con when they announced it.
Yeah.
And
that might have been it. Yeah.
Yeah, and like obviously they didn't show it in video, but I remember like they showed like the actors after they had shown the clip, and everyone was like, "Yo, what the heck was that?"
Yeah, that was a
crazy.
good day. It was a good day. I'm sure I have that on my phone somewhere. So yeah, I should pull that up. I think that's where I saw it first, and then I saw the theater thing because it was like Guardians, where they like kind of free poster. Come see this thing. Old promotional tactics. So let's. I don't have a trading card because again, I was kind of missing during this whole, era.
Yeah.
But I have a digital card, and it says, Okoye serves the Black Panther as a personal bodyguard and the nation of Wakanda as a torchbearer of tradition and virtue. Okoye is as deadly as she is wise and stands as one of T'Challa's most trusted allies and companions.
Yeah.
Simple and straight to the point.
Yeah.
And honestly, this entire talk is pretty simple and straight to the point. There are some things that are going to be like, what? But of course, what would it be if it wasn't, right? Yeah. So Okoye, straight up, that's the name. So she's undoubtedly more a mid-modern character being released in 1998, despite Black Panther coming out in, the 60s, 70s. She, in the comic itself, like I just showed you with Zuri, she was actually introduced with a number of characters. And so there's an antagonist named Manuel Ramos, as well as a rat named Buster. Okay. Zuri, Nakia, and the Dora Milaje. So all of those first appearances are in that single book, which is kind of wild because it's like they're just basically, it's like almost like a soft reboot because it was a number 1 too. So it's the 3rd volume of the Black Panther. So they're like, all right, this is the point where we're going to come in hot, rewrite some of the history a little bit, and make it more modern and fresh for the turn of the century. So it steered them toward the 2000s version, which is kind of what I feel like they've maintained more. And so for Okoye, as a teenager, when she was first recruited into the Dora Milaje, she was joined by Nakia, which is interesting because in the movies, Nakia was like, not
she didn't want
Dora.
She didn't want a part of it. She's rogue in the movies.
Right, exactly right. And so in the comics, once they joined, it was kind of like they picked up this long spoken about tradition for Wakandans. And so it's said that the selection process of the Dora Milaje is sort of like, it's a political tradition. And I feel like they mentioned this in the film very briefly, maybe in passing discussion or something. But they mentioned that they come together and they have like all that representation from all the tribes.
Yeah.
Not only for the, what do they call them? Like, when all the, what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
all the representation, like all the representatives of each tribe.
Yeah.
Like not only are they represented in that form, but also in the Dora, because the Dora Milaje have members from each tribe. And so they're there to maintain the peace across the country, and then they have members that hold those places in the royal palace. It's like this entire monarchy, patriarchy sort of system. And so they're all even Steven, pretty much, right? Like what better way to keep the peace than have everybody that's, it's like a true democracy of sorts. And so, just as a quick reminder, tribes include merchant, border, river, mining, golden, which is the royal family, and Jabari. And we talked about most of them in our M'Baku character study. So episode 41, just rewind about 20 episodes, and we talk a lot about them there. But yeah, so your one and only actual pop quiz for this episode. Do you remember what Dora Milaje means?
Oh my God.
And it's right there. It's in the words, which is especially the first word.
Dora? Dora the Explorer? Like
what does she say? What is her like? We did it! Or no, or is that Bob?
We did it!
Yeah, is it?
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that, where is?
The fact that
and it's like a pause. Good!
Yeah, that's her whole thing, is that she like waits for the kid, right?
And it's like, I ate it up. I used to watch that. I have no shame. I used to watch. I'd be like, she's right behind you. What the? Oh my God.
Because total tangent, but like I remember seeing like I was in a dentist's office or something, and it was on.
Yeah.
And like I remember the first time seeing it, and she did like the dramatic pause, and I was like, "Is it paused? Like what's happening?" And then the kids are like, "It's behind you."
That's me and Blue's Clues. I was religiously.
Which, by the way, Steve Burns was at that convention again.
Oh my God.
And I saw so many people cosplaying as Steve, like with the green shirt.
I saw that on Twitter. There was a guy on a plane wearing the Steve shirt.
Yeah, everybody. And
Dora Milaje.
Dora Milaje, yeah.
My first thought was going to like protector of this. That was like my first like gut thought. Mm-hmm. I forget the part of the movie where they say the meaning of it.
Yeah.
God. I don't know.
Simply said, Dora Milaje means the adored ones. heralded ones, the magnificent ones. Yeah, so they're on a pedestal in a way. Yeah, so that's what they are, and so that's what it translates to. But the Dora Milaje themselves. So we actually got a few questions about them as a unit, more so how many members the group can have, as well as how they're chosen. So despite the origins stemming as far back as the 11th century, the tradition of Dora Milaje had subsided over time until the reign of King T'Challa. So he was in a relationship. So we talked about this in our T'Challa episode, which is way back when, I think 18 or something.
Yeah.
And so he once was dating and seeing an American woman named Monica Lynn. And so this is the woman that Nakia threw out of the helicopter or whatever. And she's like, he's mine. She knocked her out of a helicopter.
Yes.
It's crazy. But anyway, so the rise of the Dora Milaje occurs at the time after that relationship didn't work out for T'Challa for various reasons. And so in the books, they were actually, shockingly enough, wives in waiting for the seated king. So henceforth, why they look the way they do in this comic book strip, right? They're made up. They've got makeup on. They're wearing tight red dresses, which isn't unlike that scene from Civil War where Ao approaches Natasha.
Yes.
And she's like, move.
Or we'll make you move.
Yes. And so that representation of them just like the power that they like had without even saying anything.
Yeah.
That's the same presence that they have in the comics. But in the comics, it's because they're like essentially potential wives for the king. Versus just being women of power.
That's crazy.
Very different. I was like, oh. So yeah, they were wives in waiting. And so in this case, Okoye and Nakia and the rest of the chosen ones were potential suitors for T'Challa. So he was not interested, which is the funny thing. Yeah. And so he actually looked more to them like confidants, and like it's even written like he looks to them as like children. They're his children. He wants to
like trustworthy them. Like people on like right hand and left hand women. Exactly, which they are more so in the films, which I think is the better move. I agree.
Like, it's weird. So like if you think back to our T'Challa episode in particular, like, and we'll talk about Nakia a little bit more later, but like from the get, she was like, it's gonna be me. I'm gonna be the woman. I'm gonna be the wife in the comics. And Okoye was like, I don't care about that. I just want to be like part of the Dora Milaje. And so Okoye herself was introduced as T'Challa's chauffeur in the comic. It's like, it literally says like Okoye, the king's chauffeur and bodyguard. Just like, okay, I don't know why she has to be a chauffeur, but it's kind of funny in retrospect. And then the Dora Milaje themselves only speak Hausa, which is a language mainly spoken in Nigeria and Niger, and parts of West Africa. So their cultural and actual origin ties are very, again, like the films, very connected, like they are to their roots and all that stuff, which is fantastic. And then if you want to learn more about the Dora and their tribe like essence, there's actual real book that now exists that's practical. You can go buy it. It's called Protectors of Wakanda, a history and training manual for the Dora Milaje. Oh. How intense this training is, I'm not sure. Maybe it
feels intense. Yeah. Not Red Room intense, but it feels intense.
Yeah, it might be like some workout. Who knows? But it basically tells more of their lineage in a modern day sense, and so it's pretty cool. It was just recently published. I don't know, maybe last year or maybe even less than. But of course, let's talk about Okoye, portrayed by Danai Gurira in the MCU, first seen in Black Panther. Was it Black Panther? Civil War. No, she wasn't in Civil War. She was in Black Panther, yeah. So she was first introduced in Black Panther. Last seen in Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. So yeah, it's interesting that we were actually indeed introduced to Ao first. I mean, her presence alone is so intense compared to Okoye.
Yeah. Like, I felt it in the Falcon and Winter Soldier. Yeah. I was like, oh god.
Yeah, I love Ao like so much. But yeah, like, how did you? Because was actually watching the movie your first introduction to them, or had you seen that clip from Comic-Con first?
No, I think that was it.
Wow.
Like seeing Civil War, and then like the introduction of Black Panther and everything.
Yeah.
And then like that scene with Nat.
Yeah.
And like I was like, oh. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, here we go.
Warrior ladies. Like, yeah. And so once they finally gave them their own, like, this is happening, this is coming, right? Like, the end of Winter Soldier, for instance, we're introduced to where we see Bucky go under in Wakanda, and then the Civil War aspect with actually bringing in T'Challa full force.
Man, that was a time for the MCU, man. That was really the good times.
I mean, I get why people complain, right? Because it was like solid.
Yeah.
I mean, let me just say, I just watched The Flash yesterday. I should have watched The Flash and then I Am Groot, but I did the reverse, and I was like, oh, why did I do that?
I saw it was on Max, and I was like, ooh.
Look, it ain't horrible, but it could have been like 20 minutes.
I just watched the YouTube video, the Corridor Digital guys. They do bad. They react, like VFX artists react to bad and great VFX.
Sure.
And they pretty much did a whole on the Flash.
Yeah.
And I was
it's
like,
interesting.
and I actually watched it, and I was like, oh, now I have context for this, for these specific scenes.
Sure.
That people are judging, and I'm like, oh, I see why.
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
Yeah, I was like, oh, I see why.
And I tried to keep, like, again, another tangent. I tried to keep in mind that apparently Andy Muschietti, who is the director, was like, oh, no, it's all intentional. And I was like, I don't know, man. No. And so thinking back to how, because, in my head, as I was watching it, I was like, okay, how does this measure up to, like, say, Guardians of the Galaxy Vol. 3? Oh, definitely loses. Ant-Man, like Ant-Man, I feel pace-wise.
Well, at least with Ant-Man,
the story was
supposed
there.
They're supposed to look like they're from another world. You know? Whereas in the Flash, I haven't even seen the movie, but I've seen that scene multiple times.
Yeah,
they're doing all these multiverse stuff, and they look like,
it was very interesting.
It looked like,
yeah.
I was like, I don't believe that that's an actual person.
Yeah, it was difficult actually. Like, there's a very brief, like, Henry Cavill, like, blip in it, and I was like, what is that?
I saw like a Batfleck one, and I was like, oh.
It did. I'm gonna choke. Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely worth a watch. But yeah, I can definitely
Multiverse of Madness was better than.
Yeah, no, it was. And people can say what they will about the MCU and how different it is from the Civil War, Winter Soldier days, but at least, like, the rest of it is at least mostly consistent. You know what I mean? Like, they haven't degraded in that sense. But yeah, like, Civil War and Winter Soldier specifically are so, like, peak storytelling, and then it beautifully segues into Black Panther. Yeah. Like, beautifully. Like,
another quick side tangent. When I was in Palm Springs, my friend I think he's in an MCU too.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about it, and then he was asking me about like what's your favorite I think whatever project. I told him, and then he was like, oh, what about do you hate anyone, and do you hate any other single project? I was like, honestly, no, I don't. He was like, so you don't hate like anything? I was like,
no,
there's not one I hate. It's just like maybe I prefer more than others, but there hasn't been. He was like, so there hasn't been one that you just dislike. I was like, no.
Same, actually.
I mean, sure, call me. It's like, sure, I guess it's biased, but it's also like, I was telling, I was like, if the story is telling what it's supposed to be told, then
yeah.
It did its job,
Those are your famous words. Like, truly. But it's very true.
It's kind of like, if I go in expecting something, it's kind of, well, then I'm going to hate it. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be like, oh, they didn't do this. Oh, well,
Right.
With any other just like Disney show, like even with like Star Wars, like, like say if it, I don't follow Star Wars that much, but I did see people saying like they were expecting something certain in Ahsoka.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, that just killed the theory. And it's like, well, if you're going with like that,
yeah,
you're kind of
expectation.
Yeah. It's kind of like, well, damn, that didn't happen. So it's like,
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, like it's like MJ says, like if you don't expect anything, you can't be disappointed.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's very true. And so, no, I definitely think the same. Like, I'll even still vouch for Iron Fist, for instance. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't super duper great, but it wasn't that awful. You know what I mean? Like, there are definitely parts of it, but like Colleen Wing, for instance, was like incredible in that series. The fact that they even brought Defenders together was incredible. So it's like, sure, there are parts of it that aren't as great, but it's still, they're all still good.
I feel the same about Dark Phoenix.
Right.
I brought it up on one of the past episodes where I was like, it wasn't horrible, but I see why people hated it.
Yeah, for real. I mean, I think the only one I would even begin to maybe consider is Origins. Maybe. Origins was not great, but it was still passable.
It's pretty bad. It's just funny.
It's just funny.
It's funny at that point.
Because like it still has redeeming qualities because like for instance, Sabretooth.
Yeah.
Redeeming, very redeeming.
But
like Liev Schreiber was fantastic.
The whole Wade Wilson thing.
Yeah.
That's where it kind of goes off.
Gambit, not sure like what accent he's using. Like, I get it. But yeah, it was still good. So yeah, I definitely see how people kind of reflect back on Civil War and that whole specific era very, very much. Because it is true.
Because it was able to introduce, it was able to like continue like characters' stories while also introducing new ones, and one of those being, the Black Panther and the Dora Milaje and like and Wakanda, and you're kind of like, ooh, okay,
right,
this is cool.
Very different in so many ways, especially for representation, and also just like really bringing like that powerhouse of a suite of people to the forefront, because you have some like. Even in the industry at that time, like Chad was really making some waves, and like Ryan Coogler as a director was, and then like again Danai and Lupita, of course, she was already like Oscar nominated at that point, and so you're bringing all these people, and then Angela Bassett, and then Forrest, like it's unending.
Oh yeah,
everybody in that film was like bringing more than enough to the table
Martin
by
Freeman,
just being there. Yeah, 100%.
Andy Serkis.
Yeah, all these people. Michael B. Jordan, like dude, and it really spurred something in people, and I think the Dora Milaje especially like had so much to do with like empowerment for women in the MCU that only amplified with that small, albeit brief, cameo of A-Force, if you will, in Endgame, because we were mentioning in a previous episode how some characters have had the pleasure of getting like it was in Sam Wilson, for instance, right? Like how Sam hasn't had his own solo project yet, and will not until Captain America 4, so to speak.
Yeah,
but he has had such a great continuation of his story throughout other people's bits and pieces of movies and television and film that he has one hell of a story. And I feel like Okoye and the Dora are kind of like that, right? Where they haven't, like, we've only gotten 2 Black Panther movies, but it feels like we've been with them in their story for so much longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wallahi, I will shoot her right.
So I guess we can move on to powers and paraphernalia. So Okoye is undoubtedly a phenomenal human at her core, but she's also a human, just a human, natural human. She happens to also be a master martial artist, tactician, and strategist. And so what you see is what you get with her, both in the comics as well as the MCU. But of course, in the MCU, she also tends to have the weaponry that is created or, it's of Wakanda origin, and also Shuri has a lot to do with all this, the vibranium aspect of it, as well as a suit called the Midnight Angel suit. But that's something we're actually going to talk about a little later, because there's more to that. Yeah, there's more to that than I think people realize. So for now, we'll leap into family, friends, and affiliations. And so top of the line, Riri Williams, aka Ironheart. Believe it or not, no significant connections in the comics whatsoever. None.
Wow.
None. Yeah. And again, I think we mentioned this in our Pepper episode, actually. Like, Pepper and Riri even have kind of more of interaction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because of the Iron Man aspect, And then Of course, Riri Williams, aka Ironheart, portrayed by Dominique Thorne, first and last seen in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And so she's going to come back. I mean, like, again, they've not said anything about her solo series. Maybe she'll be in Armor Wars. Like, we don't know.
I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we don't know. We'll hopefully see her again, though. And then we actually had a listener question from Ariel Tima, Instagram. Has there been a lesser other than Okoye? And so we're going to get a little bit further into the members of the Dora Milaje in this bit. And it's actually quite interesting because, aside being the first of them really properly introduced, she often takes the back seat in a lot of these cases because in the comics, she's like in the MCU, she's no longer the general. So in the members of the Dora Milaje, there is, of course, first and
guys.
Yeah, so we just had something fantastic.
Sorry for the very abrupt cutoff there. I'm gonna put that in so you know exactly how it sounds on our end.
Yeah, right.
But my computer died on us, and we're using the computer as a battery, phantom power, and then it just went all haywire on me and froze. And I wasn't sure if the files were gonna get recovered. So there was a good 15 minutes of me panicking. But then I went on a forum. And I was able to recover the file, and it was literally only Dai's file that was not working.
Yeah.
So, but shout out to the internet. I love technology.
Saving this episode.
And I hate it at the same time. But it literally saved an hour of recording.
Yeah. Give this man a raise, guys. Holy smokes.
I don't want it.
All right.
I just want seamless technology. God, I hate it.
Back to our regularly scheduled program.
You froze.
We're back.
Holy smokes.
What were we were discussing the team of the Dora Milaje.
So this is when we're going to kind of dive into the actual members of the Dora Milaje, but of course, primarily focusing on the ones that we do see in the MCU. And so first and foremost, there's Anika. And so Anika, we've come to know far better thanks to Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And so she, in the comics, was a former leader of the Dora Milaje. And she actually lost rank because she was arrested and stripped of that rank for killing a chieftain who had been victimizing women in the village. So, again, this sort of calls back to the way that the Dora existed in the comics to begin with. Again, they were wives in waiting. So the women were more like, trophy wives than they were people of prominence as we see them in the films. And so Anika, being as empowered as she was as an individual, took it upon herself to protect the other women and unfortunately had to kill somebody to do so. And so she is no longer the general. So she was the Okoye in the comics.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Anika in the MCU is portrayed by Michaela Cole. And so, she definitely had a bigger role in the second film. Yeah. And she ultimately became one of the Midnight Angels, like she also does in the comics. But there's also Ayo. And so Ayo is Anika's lover and another former Dora Milaje who also lost rank in the comic books. But of course, Ayo in the MCU, portrayed by Florence Kasumba, so amazing in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so amazing in all the things that she's in. She's just, again, she's got such a wonderful presence about her. And so she's consistently across both comics and MCU, Anika's partner and the new general of the Dora Milaje. And so, so now she's donning the gold rings and the adornments on her outfit that Okoye used to have. And then on the comic side, there is Nakia Shauku, known as Malice. And so, again, we've talked a little bit about Nakia in both the Black Panther episode, in the M'Baku episode, and then a little bit, of course, in the Wakanda Forever mini Marvel we did too. But in the comics, she's got a little more edge to her. She was a former Dora Milaje who fell from grace more or less, got obsessed with T'Challa, And then she died at one point, and she was brought back to life by Killmonger.
My gosh.
So she then, with that revival came like this enhanced physiology. And so she's a bad guy, or was a bad guy. And she went by Malice because she went crazy. And she throws people out of helicopters and moving planes.
True. And then, of course, on the much lighter side, in the MCU, Nakia is portrayed by Lupita Nyong'o. And so, definitely not going to get too deep on this character, especially because she should absolutely have her own episode. Agreed.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, like we mentioned earlier, Nakia wasn't exactly a Dora Milaje in the MCU.
Yeah.
She wore the outfit. She borrowed an outfit in the first film.
Was she ever in it and then she willingly left?
I don't remember what they said. Yeah.
She just said, well, I knew she was just...
It wasn't for her,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, because
she just wanted to help the people of Wakanda.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I need to rewatch that part, but, difficult as it is, but... She does say in the second film that even her fleeing Wakanda, in Wakanda Forever, once the king got sick, she just wanted to do more and help people. So that's why she ended up in Haiti with the son. So yeah, we can talk a little bit more about Nakia in her own episode, but there are a few Dora Milaje who have not been introduced into the MCU yet. And they're in the comics, their names are Zola, Myra, Narima, and Queen Divine Justice. And so Queen Divine, we actually talked very briefly about in the M'Baku episode, because she's actually his cousin.
That's right.
Yeah, and her origin was very similar to Killmonger in that she is of Wakandan blood, but she was born and raised in Chicago or something. Yeah, and so they haven't introduced that character. As for Zola is actually the person who trained Nakia and Okoye in the comics. So they talk about that character more in the other series. And then they also have that young adult novel that came out that we got a copy of for free from Marvel. Yeah. And so all these characters are characters they explore more on the sidelines, but there are some on screen that are also not in the comics. So for whatever reason, they've balanced the scales a bit. Those are the ones who are on screen but don't have comic book counterparts are Nombo, Yama, Gemini, and Zoliswa. Gosh, I'm just butchering that.
I mean, I don't blame you.
It's tough, yeah. And so respectively, they're portrayed by Janisha Adams Ginyard, Zola Williams, Gemini Powell, and Sidel Noel. And so those are the other prominent but not quite as prominent Dora that we see off and on. But yeah, so it's interesting that they kind of took these liberties between the two. But there's obviously more we have not met yet. So who knows? Because they could make a series, right? Wasn't that speculation that they might make a Dora Milaje Disney Plus series at some point to maybe help fill the space where
I would
Black Panther.
I would not be opposed to that.
Yeah, it would be great. And so of course this brings us to the Midnight Angels. So this is the one, if I were to pick a actual true stark contrast between MCU and comic, I would definitely say that the Midnight Angels is part of that. Mm-hmm. So in the comics, the Midnight Angels are a subgroup of the Dora Milaje who use the specialized equipment to take on larger threats. So they're like the Avengers of Wakanda, right? Right? And so they're super powered, right? They to some point where they have these accelerated suits and they're more empowered physically and their physiology is enhanced and such. And so in the books, their armor are stealth suits and the weaponry are non-vibranium.
That's interesting.
So they don't utilize the vibranium the way that they do in the MCU.
Movie. Yeah.
And for the Midnight Angels themselves, the primary members in the comics were Anika and Ayo. So the partners are it's basically them.
Yeah.
After they're stripped of their titles, and then Okoye was not a member at all of the Midnight Angels. So the fact that she takes on that helm again, it's almost like it was supposed to be. They were gonna initially start with Anika, but then they're like, oh, let's bring Okoye up to the forefront in the MCU instead, and so building off of that character rather than using the Anika template.
Yeah.
So of course in the MCU, the Midnight Angels, they're more of a team of former Dora Milaje because Anika and Okoye are the only two that have it.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think, what did Shuri say? She was like, oh, since you can't wear the garb anymore, I made this for you.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, the suits are specifically made by Shuri in the movie, and they're clearly, like, part vibranium, if not entirely. I don't know what to call it, to be honest.
I don't see why you wouldn't, why you would make it with anything else.
Yeah, right. Especially with all of the smaller intricacies of the suits that are clearly vibranium for the regular Dora Milaje warrior outfits. And so in the movies, they made those suits, quote unquote, specifically, but not specifically, to also combat the Talokan. And additionally, evidently, Okoye's father, Korabo, was supposed to be, this is like entirely unrelated to what we just previously had, but it's in the family zone, is that her father was supposed to be in the film in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I guess he's mentioned in script, but they never...
I never made it that far.
Didn't make it. Yeah. So there might be actually, there might be more Okoye story to tell that they can place somewhere else or present somewhere else. But yeah, so that's about it for family, friends, and affiliates, at least in the grander sense. Notable adversaries. So like with many of our episodes, clearly in this case, there are Black Panther adjacent antagonists that the Dora Milaje encounter because they're protecting the king.
Yeah.
So a few of the ones that they have encountered in the comics are Mephisto. That's so hilarious. The big M.
When is he going to make an appearance, man?
Yeah, man. Mephisto, Victor Von Doom, aka Dr. Doom, Achibe, Killmonger, and Namor Mackenzie. Did you know his last name was Mackenzie in the comics?
No.
Yeah. Namor Mackenzie. And then even Iron Man, especially during the original version of Civil War with the Superhuman Registration Act. So, whereas in the MCU, they've gone against, Thanos, Black Order, Ulysses Claw, and of course, Namor and his tribe. And so for this discussion, we'll just revisit Killmonger a little bit and more so tackle Namor. But so Eric Killmonger, we actually haven't covered Killmonger.
I know. I think we've been either saving him or...
Yeah, there's just so many also. Black Panther is so full of really outstanding characters. Yeah. So it's almost like, where do we draw the line of who we're not going to cover, right? Because every single character is like... Yeah,
they're worthy.
They're super duper worthy and super duper interesting. So, in the comics, there's their most outstanding connection is actually just Nakia. Nakia is the connection between Killmonger and the Dora in the comics because she's the only one, right? And those two have a connection because of the path that they go down, and. Unfortunately, upon an untimely death, again, Killmonger revives Nakia, brings her back to life, imbues her with this power, and she becomes a bad guy. So that's the extent of it. They don't actually have huge interactions beyond that. Whereas in the film, of course, Eric Killmonger, portrayed by Michael B. Jordan.
Yep.
Didn't you say that was Sam's husband?
One of them.
She got her own list.
Yeah.
And...
It's going to leave.
And so, of course, first and last scene in Black Panther. But that was her first and last appearances. He was last seen in What If. And so, I didn't know what more to say about him for now. But he had an interesting presence, especially for Okoye and the Dora Milaje, putting them in the crosshairs of having to choose...
between serving the king and or T'Challa.
Right. And so I really do love that whole thing because they're so dedicated to the country, to their land and their people.
Yeah.
that they folded so hard, and you could tell it hurt them.
They were just like, oh.
Yeah. And even like that, I think it was the first film when they, like, as T'Challa has like died, so to speak, when he's like fallen over the cliff and Killmonger becomes the new king.
Yeah.
Like the tension between like Nakia and Okoye when like Nakia's trying to flee. And she's like, you need to come. And Okoye's like, no, I can't.
I serve the king.
Yeah. And it's just the distress is like so palpable. It's like, oh my God. I really love that. And like, it's omnipresent in the way that the Dora like conduct again. Like they're so strong-willed and they serve their purpose, right? They're given so much in the films and like as characters, even though they're all the same.
Yeah.
They all look the same. They have the same garb, but they're so undeniably unique as individuals as well as a group. But yeah, and then of course, you know, we'll talk about her other conflict later on, but also in the war, right? Like while they're at war with Killmonger and their own people. Like they're still warriors, you know.
Yeah. They're
so strong and like standing their ground. Which of course is consistent when they fight Namor, of course. So in the comics, again, like I mentioned, Namor Mackenzie, aka the Submariner, or Submariner, depending on who you ask. And so in the comics, it was kind of tough, but a particularly standout moment for them was during this storyline that spanned, I think, 12 issues of its own title. It was called Avengers vs. X-Men. And it was quite literally Avengers versus X-Men. So each episode, each issue focused on an Avenger and an X-Men who would combat over during the course of this entire storyline. And so they would put people up against each other like, oh God, I can't even remember. I had every single one.
Oh, wow. Of course you did.
I had every variant. Yeah, I like hated myself after the fact because every time I'd go to the comic store when those comics were dropping, I would end up spending $45 to $60 because there's so many variants.
Yeah.
And of course, like, who do you want? Do you want Rogue to be more prominent or do you want Scarlet Witch? Like, you know, it's stuff like that. But anyway, so they actually butted heads in that story arc. And so during this particular storyline, Namor was imbued with the power of the Phoenix Force.
My gosh.
So with that, in the comics, it's called Atlantis, which is obviously like Aquaman.
Yeah.
And so it's, again, like we haven't talked about Namor yet. It might be time. And they've made some changes, obviously, in the MCU, but Atlantis waged war against Wakanda. And so that's the only actual crossover.
Oh, wow.
That we could probably significantly talk about when it comes to the comics. Whereas in the film, we've all seen it. You know what goes down. So Namor, aka, I'm not even going to try and butcher it, but maybe I should. I don't know. Because I don't know Yucatan Maya. Like, I can't.
I'm not even going to attempt.
Yeah, I Googled how to pronounce it. It's because their syllables are very different.
Yeah.
Like, their articulations are very
not going to try.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's like, it looks like Chia to Almahen, but it's like,
Yeah.
Takato, like, it's very difficult.
I'm
so sorry
catch me.
to everybody who speaks Yucatan Maya. I'm so sorry. But yes, Namor or Namor, portrayed by Tenoch Huerta and Manuel Chavez as a child in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Yeah, so let's sit with Namor a little bit and talk about how his influence. Like we said this in our Wakanda Forever episode. Like,
yeah.
He's like actually quite scary.
What did he say when he pretty much, spoiler, killed Angela Bassett, killed the queen?
Yeah.
He was like, grieve your deaths or mourn your losses.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow,
I think he says bury your dead.
Bury your dead.
Yeah.
Because I'm coming back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh.
And the way that
spicy.
His presence, right?
Yeah.
And that scene especially, right? Like, I'm glad you brought that up because this is like, of course, like Angela Bassett was outstanding again. I mean, all due respect, but
Should have won.
she should have won the Oscar. That scene of her dismissing Okoye from the Dora Milaje and also as general, and then to like literally 5 minutes later die, and then like the absolute like terror that they
was not.
all
That was like
had.
that's one of the few surprises in the MCU where I was just like,
yeah, dude,
I was not expecting that.
I was verbally saying out. I was like, no.
I was like, there's no way, right?
I was like, they didn't kill her too.
I was like, wow.
Yeah, and of course the effect that it has on Nakia, on Shuri, on Okoye.
On the whole nation.
And I think she even said it. Like, did she say, was she like, my queen?
Something like
she still
probably
regarded her as Queen Mother.
Yeah.
Even though all that happened to her, which again, testament of the Dora Milaje. But yeah, like, oof. And then, so like all that rage like bundled up and released. And also, like, you have to remember, like, they're still like grieving for Chad. So it made everything so much worse.
Yeah, I wonder how that like table read went when everybody found that out and was like, what?
Oh yeah, I know. I don't remember seeing anything in particular when they were like, oh, and because of course they always tell the person first. Like, hey, look, in Act 2, your character is going to die.
Yeah, but I wonder if that was, I forget, I don't know if I read or not, or if it's out there, if that was in the original script. 'Cause you know how the original, before like they knew of Chad,
I can't remember.
it was supposed to be because T'Challa got blipped, right?
Right.
So now he came back, but I think so. And then they had their son.
Yeah.
So I think the son of T'Challa and Nakia are supposed to play a bigger role in the second movie rather than just be like a thing at the end.
Stinger, yeah.
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 And then it was supposed to be like a kind of like a father-son kind
That's
of
right.
like
Yeah.
journey of like
Sure.
of T'Challa like kind of aligning himself with the world after being blipped, but then also having this son showing him that journey.
Yeah.
Because he's been without him for the 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that was supposed to be the original.
God.
Yeah.
It's so brutal, but they were still able to produce a film that made so much emotion and movement unintentionally, right?
Yeah, and now that, and then Namor didn't die, so it's like now they're like kind of technically at peace with each other.
Sure.
Where if like you help us, we'll help you type of thing against the greater world, which is like, I guess like Earth, you would say. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
And you just want to hope to see like, how does that pan out?
Right. Because even, and I wrote it down here in my notes, it's like the first like hint that it could be Namor was like in Endgame when Okoye is giving her report.
There's reports of earthquakes.
Yeah, reports of
we handle
earthquake.
it by not handling.
Yes. Which we then come to know is like, it was kind of a nod to, because they didn't really field it in Wakanda Forever, I feel.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like a nod to, of course, earthquakes are derivatives of core of the earth, but what if it's not the core of the earth and it's underwater? And so, to kind of have that kind of payoff, whether or not they intended to.
Yeah.
It was pretty great. And so, like, I need to watch it. Hopefully I can watch it eventually again. But in Wakanda Forever, the way that, again, Okoye is, despite how many people are in the story and their stories are being told, her path is really navigated well. Because, like, even with Shuri being abducted, that whole thing, and her and Okoye going up against the trio of Talokan, and, like, I don't know, man. Danai Gurira is, like, insane. She's so good. I love her so much. But yeah, it's wild, and it's interesting to see how far, again, how she has come from the first time she's on screen in Black Panther to now being the Midnight Angel, and how much she hates that. What does M'Baku call her again? Bald-headed demon.
You bald-headed demon.
Yeah, she's come a super duper long way.
If my soldiers were present, this fishman would be bound before us as we speak.
If your muscle brains were present, they would still be there, choking on their fuzzy adornments.
You bald-headed demon.
So when it comes to love interests, she's got a very, very short list. It exists. In the comics, she does have this very, very, very short. It's not even, I wouldn't even call it a relationship, to be honest, but it does bring a lot of interesting bits to her story. And so it was with a character called, named Kevin, quote unquote, Casper Cole. And so, in a nutshell, he was a Jewish biracial narcotics officer in the NYPD.
Oh my gosh.
The Organized Crime Control Bureau department. And so Casper, they called it's very interesting because he was a biracial child of black and white parents. They called his dad, I believe his name was like Jack Black or Black Jack.
Okay.
Jack Black.
Nice. That'd be
Peaches. So they called his dad was Black Jack Cole. And so that was his street name. And it was because like the saying was like, oh, his dad was black as night. And then his mother was, she was a white woman, but they called him Casper because he was like white like a friendly ghost. Yeah, but it's with a K, but so that he turns it into a nickname that kind of worked for him. So he's actually predominantly known as Casper. And so anyway, Casper took up the mantle of Black Panther during this period in the comics where T'Challa was unable to fulfill his duties. So I believe he had an aneurysm. And so he was, some people thought he was dead. Other people thought that he was just exiled or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so Casper happened upon the suit. He stole it.
nice.
And then he puts it on and he goes around
Pretending to be.
Yeah, it's almost like the Miles Morales thing where he got the Spider-Man suit. He made a Spider-Man. He's like, I'm Spider-Man. And it was like, dude, Spider-Man just died. What are you doing? And that's why he changed his suit. But in Casper's case, it was almost like T'Challa was like, no, this is okay because I can't do it anyway. Let somebody else do it. So Casper was kind of successful in that way. But he crosses paths with both Okoye and T'Challa because Okoye, of course, is T'Challa's trusted advisor. So even during his being under the radar, she's still with him.
Got it.
And so T'Challa's like, it's okay. I kind of want to put him to the test and see if he can be the Black Panther. He successfully does so, but he's interested in Okoye. And so she's also serving a purpose of, you're part of the test. Because he had a girlfriend and she was pregnant, and T'Challa's like, all right, can you do it? Again, like very fatherly in a weird way, right? Like you can't be interested in her.
Funny.
Yeah. And so he succeeded, and he stays with his partner, but that's all. Like there's no actual romantic interlinking at all. And there is no MCU counterpart yet that we know of. So we'll see if that actually ever comes to be. And then for Wakabi, so aside being of the Wakandan tribes, because I believe Okoye is also part of the border tribe. She's derivative of the border tribe. So they don't have a relationship in the books.
Oh, wow.
At all. So Okoye doesn't have love interests. She's straight and narrow for the most part. She's very Dora Milaje-esque in that she's dedicated where she's dedicated.
Yeah.
But not to anyone in particular except for Wakanda.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, Wakabi was married to another person in the comics. Her name was Chandra. And he's been dead in the comics since 2009.
Damn. All right.
Yeah. So he's been out of commission for a bit. So on the MCU side, it is kind of mind-blowing, right? Again, another reason of like, interesting why Ryan Coogler and the script writers in particular, like, why did they make these particular choices about which characters? I'm just curious. So Wakabi, of course, portrayed by the amazing Daniel Kaluuya, aka Spider-Punk. Oh my god, I love him so much. I saw a clip of Hot Ones that they like threw up again, like as a throwback.
Oh yeah,
and it was his, and I was like, I love Daniel Kaluuya.
Oh yeah.
I love him. And of course, first and last scene in Black Panther, because we've not seen him since.
Yeah.
And again, member of the Border Tribe who ultimately took the side of Killmonger in the first film. And then before surrendering to his love at Spear Point. And the only flicker of a mention we get of him in Wakanda Forever is from Queen Ramonda. And when Okoye is like, I can't even see my husband or something.
Yeah.
And Ramonda,
I think he was supposed to be in it, but scheduling.
Yeah. The whole pushback. Because I think he was doing Nope, right?
Probably.
Yeah. Which is also actually really, really good.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
It is.
And so, the only mention of it is like, oh, well, at least your husband is alive and a prisoner, betrayer, whatever she says. So he's in jail. Just like,
oops.
Well, but so the only relationship that Okoye actually has is the MCU. And that's it. And does she even have one anymore? I don't know. We'll see. So aesthetic, this is where I think I did the most research, to be perfectly honest, because, let's be frank, the Dora Milaje garb is where it's at, right? And so, of course, designed by Ruth E. Carter and conceptualized by Anthony Francisco, it's said that until the mid-2000s, the Dora Milaje used traditional Wakandan clothing prior to the full body vibranium armor that now protects them. Yeah. Not only against typical adversaries, but superhuman combatants as well. So if you see, where did I put my... Oh. So if you see in the comic, again, they first showed up in these skin-tight dresses, but...
They always do.
Yeah, if you look at this other screenshot, this was an early iteration of their Dora Milaje outfits. Which is, I don't even know how you would describe that, to be perfectly honest. It's kind of like... I don't know. They got some visor things going on. It's interesting,
and it's all vibranium.
And so it's interesting, right? So
looks like some what's that game called? Metroid Man, was it?
Kinda, right?
Is it Metroid? Metroid, yeah. Forgot her name.
It's all good. I forgot her name. Darn, now it's gonna be in my head. Oh man, that's gonna haunt me for a minute. And people are shouting it at home. It was a very interesting look in the comics compared to what we're obviously more familiar with, and so I put some in our little doc here. So the process for Ruth, especially in creating the costumes for film, was apparently so intense. And she really dove into African tribal wear, which is a no-brainer. And so Ruth, specifically pulled from the Ndebele South African tribe, whose women wear the brass and copper rings, around the neck, around the wrists. And that, in real life, symbolizes the bond between women and their husbands and their faithfulness. It's the dedication. It's basically a wedding ring that they actually wear on their bodies. And so in the case for the film itself, the ring served as a purpose, not only for adornment, but also protection, because they're kind of like Wonder Woman, right? Ding, ding, ding. And they're vibranium. So, nothing gets past them.
Love me some vibranium, man.
And then as for the red coloration, Ruth pulled from the Turkana, Maasai, and Hema tribes. And all of those tribes predominantly wear red. And so for the Dora Milaje especially, she amplified the contrast in the color because she wanted them to look daunting and formidable when they are in that group of women.
Yeah.
You see it in every setting, right? Especially when that scene in Black Panther 1 where they're all against Killmonger and they're about that scene is so that
with
and
the spears,
the spears, and that's you just see this cloud of red. It's so dope. And so and then on the other flip side, in addition to all of that, there's Anthony Francisco, who is a very proud Filipino, and he's mentioned countless times how his family and the culture have inspired his work with the creations that he has made, like Baby Groot, for instance. He's technically Filipino because and I think Boricua too. Like it's something he's. I forgot. Like we mentioned in our episode, and I can't remember the source that I found, but because he's anyways. But Baby Groot was based off of Anthony's son, who was a child at the time. But yeah, so he also incorporated multiple elements from multiple Asian cultures when he was conceptualizing the Dora Milaje. So if you look back at very like historical, like native Filipino tribes and tribeswomen who would have the septum piercings and the earrings, and it's also something you see in a lot of Indian cultures as well. Like he literally went all across the board as far as Asia went. He did do Indian, Japanese, Taiwan, like every single one he touched, he added something onto the Dora. And so I think if you see like his artwork, he even identifies like, oh, this is from a tribe in the Philippines. Like it's kind of crazy. So it's so unified of all these cultures. I love it. And so yeah, it's mostly seen like in that pelt that they wear around their waist in the design.
Yeah.
So apparently in the ornate detailing of that and the beadwork of the plates, he incorporated Filipino culture. Yeah, I was like, all right.
So sick.
Okay, yeah. And so Jeff, here, the pictures that I put here, the one on the left is the Midnight Angels. Ooh. And so in the comics, I believe it's Ayo. Ayo has an arrow on her forehead, which is arrow pattern, which is very similar to the one that Okoye has.
Yes.
But you can see like Ayo's is like the kid from Airbender.
Yeah.
It's like
Aang.
Aang, yeah, it looks like Aang's. It looks like Aang's, where it's like a down pointing arrow, whereas Okoye, it's like a more of just a spearhead. Yeah, but yeah, so the costumes play an equally important part when it comes to these characters. And then that brings us to other versions and in other media. So there was only one that I really wanted to focus on because Okoye has made multiple appearances as well as Dora in animation. But when it comes to variants, I thought the one that was really stand out was the one from Earth 89521. Once again, what if ... zombies, which is an exquisite episode.
Yeah.
I love that episode.
Yeah.
I need to go back and rewatch What If because I've only done it once. I've only watched it all the way through once. But yeah, my first note is died. She died. But it was fantastic because she was leading that team of like Bucky Barnes and I think Vision and Wasp and Ant-Man.
Yeah, it was a
Spider-Man. Yeah.
It was a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah, not Ant-Man because he was a zombie, I think. He was a giant zombie, wasn't he?
No,
I remember.
Oh, in the zombies episode?
Yeah.
No, he was being held hostage by Vision, remember? Because he was just the head. Scott Lang was just the head.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's even worse than I remember. Yeah. That whole thing. Holy. Yeah, I love that episode. So yeah, unfortunately, Okoye died. But but the Dora Milaje were also featured in an episode. What if Killmonger rescued Tony Stark? And that's the one where we actually see Queen Ramonda as the general of the Dora Milaje. It's super quick, but if you go back, I was like, I don't really remember it. So I looked up the screenshot, and yeah, it's Queen Ramonda, and she's the general instead of Okoye in that particular corner of the universe. I will say, I take back what I said at the top, near the top of the show about I Am Groot. There's another cameo.
Oh.
That is not Guardians of the Galaxy. That is very interesting. And I was like, oh.
I guess I'll watch tomorrow.
Yeah. And it's in the last episode. So try to watch it, quote unquote, in order. Because they're not necessarily in order. Yeah. So enjoy that. And so for Almost Was, shocker to none, there are none.
Nobody.
It was for her. She had it in the bag from the get-go.
Yes.
It is very clear why. I mean, I would go as far as to say that Coogler like really tailored and modified Okoye for Danai because it was like so like dude, of course. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's no fun in that one, but I mean, we got an amazing Okoye, so no complaints. And so for the future of the character in the MCU, we did get a listener question. Andrew Frank, 17, on IG. Do you think Shuri will bring Okoye back to the Dora Milaje?
Can you come back?
I don't know,
if you've
right?
been dismissed?
I don't think so. I think it's once you're done, you are discharged for life. Henceforth, the Midnight Angels. But if it's possible.
I think it was possible, sure, but I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so. I mean, who knows where also like the next, Black Panther story is going to be?
Yeah.
Or
No.
when?
Yeah.
There's just so much lined up,
I know.
So it's like, who knows what's going to happen?
Honestly. So yeah, I agree with you, Jeff. When do you think we'll see her next? Same.
I mean, we're going to get like, our Avenger level movies soon. Actually, not soon anymore. Within the next maybe 3 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll get,
Yeah.
them at some point, but I don't know. The MCU's getting bigger and bigger.
I was gonna say, like, do you even see them being incorporated after this point? Like, do you, beyond a potential wherever they bring in the Talokan again?
Yeah.
Like, what if Namor has his own film or whatever it is? Do you even see the Dora Milaje, let alone Okoye, being integrated into any of that
I
stuff?
can see it maybe in Thunderbolts.
Really?
Just like
'Cause
super
of the
quick, super
Bucky-
just
'cause
because
of the Bucky
of.
thing.
But now that we also know that Martin Freeman's character was a freaking scroll,
Spoiler alert.
so so it's kind of like, okay, so where was
Yeah.
what's his character's name? Agent.
You know this.
Oh my god, dude, I'm blanking out.
You know, you
Did I-
said it earlier.
Did I think I just said
Yeah.
Martin Freeman?
No, oh, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think I just said Martin Freeman. Oh my
Ross.
god, what, Ross.
Yeah.
There it is. Everett Ross.
Everett Ross.
So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
so where was Ross in Wakanda Forever?
Mm-hmm.
Like, was he a Skrull then?
That's right. And I think I said this during our Secret Invasion mini. Because it was like, yeah, dude, he like straight up got arrested for helping. So is that Skrull Ross or is that Ross
and
Ross?
So like, I think I said this in our Secret Invasion, where it's like, now the Secret Invasion is done. Like, now we're gonna be like, okay, who's the freaking Skrull in the government and all, So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, where is that? Because we obviously know that Agent Ross is probably like the only liaison to Wakanda. So it's kind of like,
I mean,
and then with
Bucky.
Thunderbolts coming in, you have
Yeah.
you have Thunderbolt Ross, and then you also have at some point Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character coming
Contessa.
in. Contessa.
Valentina. Contessa.
Valentina.
Contessa. I
So-
always forget her full name.
Yeah.
The Allegra Fontaine.
Yes. I was gonna say Fontaine, and I was like, Fountain?
Contessa Valentina de Allegra Fontaine.
Yeah, and we all know like her history with Ross.
Sure.
So it's kind of like, I could see that maybe them being mentioned. I don't know if they would ever show up, but
I know, right?
but Thunderbolts is already jam packed. Also,
I would almost say that between Ross and Bucky, they've got a cameo locked in.
yeah.
Because Ao for Bucky and then Okoye for Ross. But at the same time, again, like, do they?
But then you have that, but then you also just have, like,
But also
logistics.
Zemo.
Then you
And
just have
then
like
Zemo,
logistics too. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, do they have a purpose? Are they available?
I
Can
changed-
you write them in?
Yeah. I definitely changed my answer now, though, because yes, Baron Zemo is captive in Wakanda. So if
Yes.
if
That's a
Zemo,
trade-off. That was a trade-off,
Yeah,
isn't it? Yeah.
If Zemo, as he was originally supposedly intended to be in Thunderbolts, but they're like kind of just like photoshopped him out, then that would be the key in. That's the way that I
that's
can see
right.
them. Right. Like he was supposed to be announced,
So
but
I don't
they're
know.
like, no, they didn't.
I don't, because I'm also anti like, don't just put characters in to put characters in. I'm like, whatever's
Yeah.
the story of that movie or show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
as
exactly.
long as only if it like services the story.
Yeah.
That's always my thing.
I agree.
So
So, that said, suggested reading. So, I would say for more about Okoye and the Dora Milaje, the 1998 through 2000 run of Black Panther, that's volume 3, gives a good sense of the roots. for both Okoye as well as the Dora. And then in 2022, in 2022's Wakanda, simply titled Wakanda, I think it was a 5 or 6 issue short series that followed some of the more familiar faces. So it's like Shuri, and then M'Baku, and then Nakia, and then, of course, Okoye. But they also introduced a hero that became a fan favorite in the comics that they have not introduced in the MCU yet. So this could be another character that they might bring in eventually. But his name is Tosin. And so that whole series takes place while T'Challa is in exile, so it really focuses on the other characters and their subplots. And then, funny enough, 2021's Iron Fist, Heart of the Dragon, it basically features a bunch of the deadliest and most skilled warriors fighting alongside Iron Fist. And of course, Okoye is one of them. So there's zombies, there's dragons, there's butt kicking. What more can you ask for?
Of course.
And then last but not least, of course, any of the various Wakanda Forever titles. There's a ton of them. Anything past 2010, you're probably good for, because that's when they really, again, started to sort of integrate what's familiar in the MCU.
Yeah, that's right.
Even the look is there. So definitely would suggest that. And that said, that's the end of the show.
Woo!
Woo! What a roller coaster.
Oh, yeah.
So, we had ended the previous episode with, like, we weren't sure who to cover yet. And so we opened up polls on our social media, and it was between Okoye and the Dora Milaje, Shuri, Hela, and Mary Jane Watson. And so I remember before we had broke for our respective trips, I was like, all right, Jeff, pie in the sky, who would you want to cover? You were like, I think it's time for my girl, MJ. And so I was like, okay, cool. And then the polls were like, nah, it's going to be Okoye. So we're going to cover Mary Jane Watson at long last.
All of them.
All of them. Exactly right. We're going to do MJ Watson. We're going to do Michelle Jones Watson. We're going to do Mary Jane Watson. So all three and their variants in the next episode for the Big 64. A We Are Groot salute to Ashley, Ed, Ariel, Sherry, Andrea, Melanie, Tyler, Jenny, Eve, Katie, Edgar, Robin, the Arachnerd, Nats, Claire, Joe, Liz, Andrew, and Laura. Follow us on social at STRKCNTRST. And if you like what you hear, review, rate, and subscribe.
Yes, please. Once again, thanks for listening. We'll catch y'all in the next one.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Nokuba ikona into ekufuneke fezinkilingaye ixesha liphelile. Release him to us now.
Hi, John Walker. Captain America. Well, let's put down the pointy sticks and we can talk this through, huh?
Hey, John, take it easy. You might want to fight Bucky before you tangle with the Dora Milaje.
The Dora Milaje don't have jurisdiction here.
The Dora Milaje have jurisdiction wherever the Dora Milaje find themselves to be.